Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Today we're going to do a long overdue segment. We're going to talk about some Q's and A's that we have, a bunch of questions that have come up in relationship to some of the videos we've shot.
Yep. The first one is we were talking about potatoes the other day, and the fact that, and I'm not the only one who's had this problem. I actually got a text from a girlfriend yesterday that said, "Oh my gosh," she lives in the Sierras, right? She got her green onions to plant last month, and she's like, "Seriously? We're frozen solid as a rock right now." So what do you do?
Yeah. So our first question came from Grow Something with Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Great information. I have some potatoes as well. And my last frost is May 3rd. That's earlier than us.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have a cool place to keep them, and my refrigerator is frost-free. Any recommendations?
Well, part of that's going to depend on your fridge. Obviously, if you have a cellar, a basement, anything like that, any kind of location that doesn't freeze but is cool, preferably down 40s and 50s sort of thing, that's the place to have it. A lot of houses these days are built on slabs, so there's no basements. You may not even have an interior room that stays that cool, and exterior rooms may be subject to freezing. So it depends on your fridge. If you have a newer fridge, some of the new fridges have vegetable crispers, which actually do a pretty good job. They'll say something like humidity controlled or something like that. And the point with that is that if you were to throw vegetables on a regular shelf in your fridge, they dehydrate. Because if it's a frost-free refrigerator, the frost-free refrigerator, and this is why they use so much electricity, cycles between heating and cooling and usually running some sort of a fan situation. And what that does is it actually removes the moisture from the refrigerator and throws it out, sometimes into a tray, or it depends on the fridge. But the problem with that is it desiccates your vegetables. It dries them out.
So there's some really low-tech ways of dealing this.
Right.
If you have a garage with concrete floor, one of the things that you can do is put your potatoes in something, a cardboard box.
But you have to make sure it's not going to freeze.
Or something like that,
Right.
and put some straw, wadded up newspaper, anything in the bottom of that box so that you're not going to be freezing the potatoes.
Right.
Cover the box up, put some more covers over it.
Right.
A blanket, a moving blanket, anything like that. If you don't have a garage and you live in a more rural area, or you have a suburban backyard that doesn't go through big temperature swings, you can go ahead and put the potatoes out in a box, just like we were talking about. Cover it with straw or hay, and again, put a cover over it.
Right.
A blanket, or what we used to do when I was much, much younger is we'd put them under some straw, cover it with dirt, and we'd keep potatoes for a very long time that way.
Right. Now, it depends on your situation. I would never cover my potatoes with straw here. Because you know what? The rodents would go, ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a, dinner, and they'd call all their friends, and we'd go out there, and the potatoes would be all chewed up. So that's a problem for us where we are because we have a high rodent population. We are also having such huge temperature swings running from, it's going to be 60 today. And last night it was 28. And a couple of days ago it was 16. So we're getting these swings that are just too much. It might be possible to keep something from freezing in a cooler, but I wouldn't want to risk it. What I'm currently doing with mine is some of them are in my vegetable crisper, but there's also tulips in there. And a couple of other things. So the potatoes I have that were least sprouted are currently in the original containers that they came in, which is, in the case of our supplier, burlap bags, which is great because that breathes. Pay attention. If you want to try putting it into a plastic bag, you can, but you'll have to monitor to make sure you don't get rot. If things start to dry out a little bit, you can throw a damp paper towel in there, damp, not wet, paper towel in there to help moderate the moisture problems. And even if the potatoes shrivel up a little bit,
They're fine.
they're fine.
Yeah.
They're fine. We've planted some fairly shriveled potatoes before, and they did just fine. The only thing I worry about is if the sprouts actually die from being too dry, then you've lost those sprouts, and they don't usually come back.
Yeah. Next question is from In the Garden with Grandpa and Grandma. Have to try the mini broccoli next year. Sounds interesting. Well, it is interesting. Tastes great. Their question was, what size of container to plant those plants in so that they're not crowded, but you're optimum in terms of your yield?
Right. That's a little hard for me to guess because we don't have a huge amount of experience with them. But based on last year and where they were planted outside, and this year, and the information I have from the grower, they're saying about a square foot per plant.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good bet for most of that kind of vegetable.
Yeah, a square foot to 18, square inches in every direction, sort of thing, is what I would say. They're saying my grower says plant them every 12 to 24 inches. So if you're trying to pack them in, I'd say a square foot per plant. If you have more inches, fine. A lot of it depends on what kind of an environment you have. If you're in a more moist environment, you're going to be more susceptible to any kind of fungal
Yeah,
stuff.
so space it out a little bit.
Right. Whereas we don't really have that much of a problem with it. We have a fan that runs in the greenhouse, which is where they are right now. Outside, we didn't have any fungal problems. The problems we had there were mostly things like cutworms and stuff. Worms that came in to eat the leaves because they were so tasty.
Next comment was from Adler Arking. Thanks for the update on the heat mats. How nice that an inexpensive made in China and ordered from a big
Box store.
online retailer actually perform well. Well,
Yes and no now.
We have a potential issue with one of the heat mats. Actually, the heat mat that was the highest price.
Yes, has failed. And I went out there the other day, and it told me that the temperature of the heat mat was 0. The other 2 heat mats that I'm using out there, which were from the same batch of 3 that Henry had bought randomly online, are doing fine. And it's funny because at least one of them has 0 instructions with it. I found out that they all work the same. As Henry said, they probably all come from the same factory, and the only thing that's different is the covers that they put on the various pieces of them.
I have a suspicion about what's gone wrong, but we'll give you an update again whenever I get that analysis done.
Right.
Our next comment came from Deborah Rogers. She generally made the comment that she's living here in Arizona as well in a different area, but she had some specific questions that she thought were important for her to understand, and she asked if Irene would be willing to chat with her more in private. And the answer to that always is we have contact information in our About link on YouTube. Send us an email. And assuming we have the time and we have the information, we'll be happy to share it with you. And if we can't, we'll let you know.
Right, yeah. And in her case, I believe I sent her a couple of websites that I recommend she read the information on and some stuff like that. I mean, a lot of times there's some good websites out there that it would take me forever to type it all in. It doesn't make any sense. You need to just go read the website. But yeah, there's some really good sources. I was on the University of Massachusetts website this morning checking out a couple of things. A lot of the universities have amazing websites. So whatever state you're in, there's at least one university there that, no matter how large or small your state is, that will have good agricultural information.
Next comment is from CB at CB's Greenhouse and Garden. Thanks very much for this comment. Too bad you caught on to what was actually going on. He said that where he lives, they won't allow you to take more than 3 propane tanks in a vehicle, and they have to be upright. Well,
and they had to be in the back of a truck. They can't be in the car.
Yeah, so
they don't care here.
you caught me, CB. This is not a safe thing to do. What I will tell you is that the reason why they tell you to put propane tanks upright is because there's a overpressure relief valve at the top of that cylinder. For commercial retail tanks, that valve will draw whatever's at the 50% point and higher if it's laying on its side. Well, what that means is if you have any propane to speak of in a tank laying down in your car or truck, it's just as likely, in fact it will, spit liquid propane out that relief valve if the relief valve goes off. That's why you don't want to transport propane cylinders on their side. Now, if you look at industrial cylinders for things like, forklifts, they work on their side, and that's because they have a different configuration of the pressure relief valve. So there's a lot of different regulations, different places.
Yeah.
Some counties restrict the amount of propane that you can have inside the vehicle of any kind of vehicle, not necessarily enclosed, but in the back of a pickup truck,
Right.
to no more than 3 cylinders.
Right.
Some places limit you to 45 pounds worth of propane. Some limit you to 45 gallons worth of propane. It's a lot of propane, and the danger is when a tank vents. Doesn't happen very often, but when it vents, if you have that relief valve down, you're going to put liquid propane out, and then that liquid propane will expand very, very rapidly, and propane vapor is a dangerous thing. Be safe. Don't transport cylinders on their side. Don't put them in an enclosed vehicle. When I drive with a propane tank in the car, the windows go down.
And we're only going a couple of miles, mostly off-road, environment. So
Yeah. Ken at Maple Leaf Forge and Stuff asked about where we came up with the name BrainStormAcres, and he was wondering whether or not it related in any way to my accident.
No, we were just looking for something that described our basic mode of operation here, which is we're always brainstorming something. We're always trying to figure out how to work smart, not hard, and safe. Gosh almighty, don't use a kitchen stool to stand on if you should be using a ladder. The display of a ladder feet is much broader. It gives you a much steadier base. Be careful what you set your ladder on.
Our friend from a Cog Hill family farm, Jason, also made a comment.
What an incredible story of courage. Thank you all so much for sharing this, and I'm honored to be part of it. You're the real inspiration. Well,
what I can tell you is that there was a lot more footage left on the cutting room floor for my piece of that video. It was a lot more difficult to tell that story, even though I've told people face to face
a bazillion times,
dozens of times in the past 4 years, until I really sat down to tell all of you that story all at one time and think back through everything that had gone on. It really hit me in a big way.
People will say, "Oh, you're brave, you're this, you're that." What kind of choices do you have?
Thank you all for all of your comments all year long. It's been great getting to know you through your comments.
Right, and it encourages us sometimes to look up some bits and pieces.
Do you know what time it is?
Time to shut up.
No, it's time to say goodbye.
Ah, yes.
You're blushing. How cute.
So if you have questions, specific questions about something that we've mentioned, don't hesitate to ask. If we know the answer or can get you the answer, we will.
What time is it?
It's time to say goodbye. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because obviously we'll be doing lots more. I was out there counting plants this morning, baby seeds that have grown up to be seedlings, and I have like 28 Sweet William flowers sitting out there. So we have actually started. Sweet William is a dianthus, which means it's a perennial, and it takes longer to get to plant out in the garden size. So it's got to be started now, and it is. We got 28 of them so far.
Still time to say goodbye.
It is. So until next time, bye.